Black nurse saves white billionaire's life. Days later he fires her without reason. It was a cold, rainy evening when Maya finished her last shift at the city hospital. Exhausted but proud, she knew her job as a nurse wasn't easy, especially for a black woman in a demanding, high-pressure environment. Yet, she loved helping people, even when her own life was anything but easy. As she packed up to leave, the emergency room doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in carrying a man unconscious and pale as death. "This is John Carlyle, Billionaire CEO, found collapsed in his office," one shouted. Maya's heart skipped a beat. John Carlyle wasn't just any patient. He was a powerful man known for his ruthless business deals, a man many feared and admired. Rumors said he treated his employees like disposable pawns. But right now, John was just a man fighting for his life. Without hesitation, Maya jumped into action, her years of training kicking in. She checked his pulse, stabilized his airway, and helped the doctors start emergency treatment. Minutes felt like hours as Maya worked tirelessly, ignoring the ache in her legs and the pounding of her heart. The room was tense. Every breath John took seemed like a victory. This was the moment that would change everything, for both Maya and John, in ways neither of them could imagine. Maya's hands moved quickly but carefully, every second counting as John's condition worsened. The doctors relied on her calm under pressure, and she stayed focused, blocking out the whispers and the judgmental looks from some of the hospital staff who underestimated her because of her race and background. As she administered oxygen and monitored his vitals, she caught a glimpse of John's face, his usual arrogant expression replaced with vulnerability. For the first time, he was powerless, and it was Maya who held his life in her hands. Her mind raced back to all the times she had been overlooked or disrespected because of who she was. But right now, none of that mattered. What mattered was saving this man, no matter how cold or distant he had been to others. After what felt like an eternity, John's pulse steadied. The doctors confirmed he was stable, thanks largely to Maya's quick action. Relief flooded her, but she stayed alert, knowing the fight wasn't over. John slowly opened his eyes and looked around, confused and weak. His gaze finally landed on Maya. For a brief moment, the harsh businessman was gone. Instead, there was something like gratitude, or maybe shock, in his eyes. Little did Maya know, this moment of saving a life would soon be overshadowed by a shocking betrayal, one that would test her strength in ways she never expected. John's eyes focused on Maya as she gently adjusted the oxygen mask on his face. "Thank you," he whispered hoarsely, his voice barely audible but carrying a weight that surprised her. For a man known for his coldness, this was unexpected. Maya gave a small nod, keeping her professional calm. She wasn't used to praise, especially from someone like John Carlyle. She had seen how he treated others, harshly and without empathy. But right now, he was vulnerable, and she was the one who pulled him back from the edge. The hospital buzzed with whispers about the billionaire's dramatic rescue, and for a moment, Maya felt a flicker of pride. Maybe now, things would change. Maybe John would see her differently, not just as a nurse, but as a person deserving respect. Days passed, and Maya returned to work, hopeful. But the calls she started receiving told a different story. John's private company had a position open, and despite saving his life, Maya's application was quietly rejected. When she reached out, she was met with silence, then cold dismissal. Confused and hurt, Maya wondered if her life-saving act had been nothing more than a fleeting moment to John. A moment he was quick to forget. But the truth was far harsher than she imagined. This was just the beginning of a betrayal that would shake her world. Maya's phone rang late one evening. It was from John Carlyle's private office. Her heart skipped a beat. Finally, some recognition, she thought. But instead of gratitude, she was met with a cold, clipped voice on the other end. "We reviewed your file. Unfortunately, we're unable to offer you the position. Thank you for your time," said the HR manager without any explanation. Maya sat in stunned silence. How could saving a man's life mean so little? She had risked everything, her energy, her hope, her trust. Yet, here she was, discarded like a used tool. Days turned into weeks, and the rejection weighed heavily on her. She confided in close friends, who urged her not to give up. But the pain was deep. This wasn't just about a job. It was about respect, dignity, and justice. One afternoon, as she walked home, Maya noticed something odd. A black SUV was parked across the street from her apartment. She felt eyes watching her, a chilling reminder that John Carlyle's world was never far away. Determined not to be broken, Maya vowed to uncover why she was really fired, and to make sure the truth came to light. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening behind the scenes. She began quietly digging, using contacts she had made over the years working in healthcare and the city. What she found shocked her. John Carlyle's company wasn't just rejecting her because of lack of experience, there was a darker reason. Rumors of corruption, unfair layoffs, and a ruthless culture where anyone who challenged the status quo was silenced. And Maya's saving his life? It didn't change the cold, harsh business game he played. But the deeper Maya looked, the more she realized how many people had been hurt by John's greed and cruelty. Employees fired without cause, whistleblowers threatened, and families left struggling. She knew exposing this wouldn't be easy, especially for a black woman standing up to a billionaire. But Maya's sense of justice burned too brightly to back down now. She started collecting evidence, talking to former employees, and preparing to fight back, not just for herself, but for everyone John had wronged. The stakes were high, but Maya was ready. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about standing up for what was right. Maya's courage began to inspire others. Former employees she reached out to started sharing their stories, tales of unfair treatment, lies, and fear. Together, they formed a small but determined group ready to take on John Carlyle's empire. But word got out. One afternoon, Maya received a threatening message warning her to stop digging or face consequences. The message rattled her, but instead of backing down, it fueled her resolve. She knew this battle wouldn't be easy. John was powerful, wealthy, and ruthless. But Maya had something he underestimated: the strength of truth and the power of a community united. She scheduled a meeting with a local investigative journalist known for exposing corporate scandals. With evidence in hand, Maya was ready to tell her story, and the stories of those silenced by John's greed. As she prepared for the interview, Maya couldn't help but think back to the moment she saved John's life. The man who once owed her everything was now the enemy. But she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for justice. The day the story aired on local news, Maya felt a mix of anxiety and hope. She sat in her small apartment, watching as the journalist laid out the harsh truths about John Carlyle's company, the corruption, the unfair firings, and the very public betrayal of the nurse who saved his life. The community's reaction was immediate and fierce. Messages of support flooded Maya's phone. People admired her bravery and were angry at how she'd been treated. But the backlash wasn't far behind. John's legal team quickly sent cease and desist letters, trying to silence Maya and the journalist. His PR team launched a counter-campaign painting Maya as dishonest and opportunistic. Despite the pressure, Maya refused to stay quiet. She knew the fight was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, she felt she was no longer alone. Her courage was sparking change, and that scared the powerful. With the story out in the open, John Carlyle's empire began to tremble. Investors grew uneasy, and the public's outrage forced the company's board to start asking questions. John's once untouchable image was cracking, but the fight wasn't just in the boardroom, it was personal. Maya started receiving more threats, some more serious than before. Friends worried for her safety, urging her to step back. Yet, every time doubt crept in, Maya reminded herself why she started this fight, not just for her dignity, but for every voice silenced by injustice. Then came a surprise. A former high-ranking executive, once loyal to John, reached out to Maya privately. This whistleblower offered critical evidence, emails and documents that exposed the deepest levels of corruption. Maya knew this was the breakthrough she needed. The stakes were higher than ever, but so was her determination. This was no longer just a battle for a job, it was a fight to bring down a corrupt empire and reclaim justice for the forgotten. Armed with the whistleblower's evidence, Maya and the investigative journalist prepared to take their case to the authorities. The damning documents exposed illegal practices, fraudulent accounting, intimidation tactics, and attempts to silence employees who spoke out. The news spread like wildfire. Protests erupted outside John Carlyle's headquarters. Pressure mounted from regulators, shareholders, and the public. John tried to fight back with lawyers and media spin, but the evidence was overwhelming. The billionaire, once feared and untouchable, found himself facing multiple investigations. Meanwhile, Maya became a symbol of courage and resilience, her story inspiring countless others to speak up against injustice. Despite the threats and setbacks, she stood tall, knowing that her fight had sparked real change. And as the walls closed in on John Carlyle, Maya finally felt the taste of justice she had longed for. The court hearings were intense. John Carlyle faced charges that shocked even the city's most seasoned legal experts. His empire was crumbling, and with every revelation, the man who once held so much power was brought closer to defeat. Maya watched the news, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and triumph. She had stood up when no one else dared, and now, justice was being served, not just for her, but for every person John had wronged. Months later, Maya received an unexpected call. It was from a prominent foundation offering her a leadership role, an opportunity to continue fighting for fairness and equality on a much bigger stage. As she walked into the new office, Maya glanced at her reflection. The weary nurse who saved a billionaire's life had transformed into a beacon of hope and change. Her wedding band glinted in the light, a symbol of strength, resilience, and the promise that no matter how hard life gets, courage can rewrite your story. And this time, Maya's story was just beginning.